guest today is a music artist by the name of Thomson. He's got a new track out titled Night Mode. He's coming out of Winter Park, Colorado. Here's Thomson. And you're influenced by hip-hop, right, Parks?
Very much so. At a young age. There was a man by the name of Ralph Green. He was a guy that lost his leg in a drive-by. He drove up to the mountains from, I believe, Harlem, and he became a Paralympian as a skier. And I asked him what his first rap album was, because I wanted to listen to rap music, and he went and bought me DMX, The Great Depression. That was my first album that I ever listened to.
And you were struck by that, and then you started to write material. Like, can we talk about the birth of when you started to write your own material and say, were you a writer since birth? Did this come natural to you?
I started writing lyrics probably when I was 14 and maybe 13 actually, and I was writing full-length songs. The first time that I wrote a rap song was, I think I was actually 14 when I wrote a rap song, and I had a mentor at that time by the name of Larry Norman. He was a DJ Normski, shout out. Tacoma, Washington, Hilltop, shout out. I asked him, hey man, like I really want to rap, and he said, well, you're going to have to write a full rap song. He said, so I drive the bus and here's my schedule, and if you really want to read me lyrics or rap to me, you can write songs, get on the bus, ride my route, and you can rap to me in the front seat. And so that's what I did. And From the song, he told me right away that I was talented and I needed to continue to pursue that, and it was a good way for me to get out anger, frustration, stress, mostly those type of emotions.
Nice, man, nice. And cutting forward to here, can we talk about new releases? What's your most recent release to date?
Night Mode with Evil Ebenezer from Canada.
Night Mode, very nice. Can we talk a little bit about Night Mode?
Absolutely. So, Night Mode was a cool track. I had always respected the movement of Evil Ebenezer. I think I'd been turned on to Evil Ebenezer from a friend of mine, Connor Nelson. I had been listening to Mercules as well, and I just didn't know that Evil Ebenezer had really worked with Mercules a whole lot until I actually started listening to Evil's own catalog. And I respected his work, I respected his work ethic most importantly, because that's what we really believe on this side of things with my music, is that your work ethic is the most important thing. And I reached out to him, and he got back to me and said, yeah, send me something. So I sent him a track. It was called Let Me Go. It's still not released. And he said, that track is excellent. I would absolutely love to work with you. So, send me a beat. And I said, why don't you just hop on that track? He told me, he said, he said that track is so well put together. I don't want to taint it at all. You just keep that and we'll start fresh. And
all right.
So that was a big compliment to me.
Absolutely.
So that song is now, it's been floating around through some people's hands. I think it's over in Yellow's camp at the moment. We'll see what happens. We're planning the music video shoot to it right now. Actually, the last week we've been scripting, getting shot lists together, directors, actors, all that.
Nice. It's in the works.
So when we decided to do Night Mode, I had this other track that I was working on at the time, and I hadn't named it yet. And actually, the beat itself was named Night Mode, and Jacob Lethal was the producer of that beat. Shout out Jacob Lethal. He's always taking care of me. He's actually my favorite YouTube producer. Everybody's got a favorite YouTube producer. You can't forget that. Jacob Lethal is my favorite YouTube producer. And he's phenomenal. He's done some really big things. And it was just such a hard beat, man. And for me, that was like I heard myself doing more of like the new style kind of, I don't know, mainstream kind of chopping it in. So I went ahead and wrote my part and just sent it over to Evil Ebenezer, and we just decided to put bars on it, right? We're just going to do bars. And he ended up sending it back with a verse, and he had done a chorus, which is unlikely when you do a collab with an artist for the first time. Most of the time, they're just going to give you a chorus or a verse. So I was pretty fortunate. I had already done 3 separate choruses for the track too. So I took a chorus and just made it into a bridge and then spit my verse, and it actually wasn't sure how I liked it at first. And then when it came back, mixed and mastered by Jeremiah Rios, who was a head engineer at the Palm Studio at Palm's Casino. He's one of the best engineers out there for hip hop, in my opinion. And he's worked with many big names, and most importantly, I love the fact that he's willing to work with a guy like me.
Absolutely.
So it came back, and I was like, holy shit, this is fucking way harder than I thought. This is way harder. So I started bumping it, and like every time I bumped it, I was like, man, I like this track more. We were talking before it came back, and I was like, I don't really know how I feel about this. Like, it
was kind of like,
like we just kind of threw bars at that track, and it just came back right. So and
that sometimes happens.
Yeah, and ever since it came back, I just had like mad Canadians reaching out in my DMs and being like, bro, you sound so good with Evil Ebenezer, and like that's my favorite song now.
Yeah, Canadians are real awesome to us lately.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
really excited.
I think it's because like the mountain culture in Colorado and the mountain culture out in BC and Vancouver is
for sure
similar to the one here. So like, weed's legal here. It's legal there. It's a big movement. Skiing, snowboarding, rock climbing, rafting, cliff jumping. They love all the shit that we like. So.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
I think that's pretty tight. So it seems to be a really good fit. So we actually have another track coming out soon too, and it's in the Ebenezer is writing to it as we speak.
Oh, yeah.
And it should come back this week. He just released his new album too. So today, actually, he released his new album today.
Yep.
So pretty stoked for that.
I have a lot of respect that you say, what you look for is work ethic in the people, and like you say, you send something out and then the guy sends you back more than you expect. That's the caliber that you're working with.
Oh,
that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it hasn't always been like that, we've worked our way up all the way from the bottom, and I think that's important for people to understand is there's absolutely no shortcuts in this game at all. You got to work your way up.
No, man, and some people learn that the hard way, right? They chase that shortcut, and then where do they end up, at the same place they started.
Absolutely. Sometimes worse.
Most of the time broke as fuck. That's what happens if you try to take too much of a shortcut. You get taken for everything you have.
Oh, yeah.
Man, Parks, can we talk about one of the biggest struggles you had to go through as a musician that you prevailed, that got you to where you are here today? Because a lot of people might see you and they're going, man, I just started my music, my career. I haven't even been doing it as long as this guy. He's got all these stories. He's got all this stuff. What was one of the hardest things you had to prevail through that you said, this is the stuff we got to get through to be who we want to be?
That's a real hard question because, it seems like every time I have a struggle, it's the hardest one yet.
Right.
And I guess every time you go through a situation, you learn how to deal with it better the next time too. And, I've had multiple beefs in the industry. I've had songs that aren't released with major mainstream artists. I have, I've been stolen from. I've been, and you can't let none of that get you down. And I think that's the most important thing. When someone steals from you, when someone lies to you, when someone takes for granted your kindness, like mistaking your kindness for weakness, then I kind of look at it as a compliment now. Like, wow, I really got something going on to where this motherfucker wants to take this from me. Yeah. He sees me as more of an asset than I see him or the other party. And there's been a lot of times where that's happened, not just to me, but multiple people, you know, and when there's multiple people tied up into a song, it gets pretty sticky. And sometimes it's better to just let it go. And sometimes it's not okay to let it go. There's been many times where you think there's this fucking, you know, gold at the end of the tunnel. It's not even like light, you know?
Right.
Like you see, I think artists, they're like, oh, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Well, no, they see gold at the end of the tunnel. That's what you see. And you're like, there's something so much more precious right there. And
if I could only get there.
Yeah, and when something goes wrong, a lot of times you start thinking, maybe there's not gold at the end of that tunnel. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe I'm not even in a tunnel. Maybe I'm in a black hole.
Right.
And the second that you start thinking that way, it all spirals, and you start going back into like, well, maybe I'll just not do this at all. And I think that most artists that have made it have had that thought. Maybe I should quit. And I think that your own brain is probably your worst enemy. Most of the time, it's you making more of something than what it is.
Yeah.
And you could say that, you know, some people spend very little on tracks, right? But when you start to get bigger, more money becomes involved, right? And more time and more creativity, more energy. So you start looking at value of your art as what you've put into it, right? So someone that puts very little energy into their art, then they value their art differently than somebody that puts all their energy, all their money, all their time. They risk their own well-being for their art, family's well-being for their art. They are literally putting every bit of everything into it. Those are the people that end up with more of I guess it becomes a life traumatic experience.
Absolutely. You sacrifice a normal life when you decide to do this. You give it all up because you got to be all in. You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And this life is a sacrifice of a normal one.
Right. And it goes like, you know, it's one thing, like in everything that you put in, like when I first started, you know, $100 was a lot of money. Yeah. Like you'd be like, shit, I need to find $100. I need to go get 1 hour at the fucking studio or 2 hours at the studio. And I need to lay this track, or I need to lay 3 tracks in an hour. Like you're just making the most of your money, you know, which is totally understandable. But those are also some of the most important times because you have that $100, you come in and that dude's like, cool, you got 2 hours, right? And you've rehearsed, you're like, here's the beat, I'm just gonna lay it. You go through it like it's a performance, you know, like you don't even know what layers are at that point or ad-libs or anything. Right. You're really just performing, and you're just like, rap one song, rap the next song, and you impress those people, and they're like, damn, you didn't waste any of my time.
Right.
And I think that that's really important too, is showing people that you're not ever here to waste time for them or yourself. And I think that because time is the most valuable resource, right?
Absolutely.
That my time is worth $5,000 an hour, and I still believe that. And you know, whether other people do or not really doesn't matter. It matters that I believe it. It matters that that I believe in myself, because when you believe in yourself, then other people start to believe in you, and they can see that. They can tell if you really don't believe in yourself or if you're in and out. And they can tell at first glance most of the time.
People will respect and see that confidence and respect behind your process, and they'll be forced to follow it, or they'll be forced not to, but at least you know what you're dealing with, and it's better to know what you're dealing with than to be with all the disguises and the fabrications.
And I think one of the, you know, your original question was, what was one of the hardest things that you had to go through for your music? You know, when I was doing my first album that was produced by Jomesius the Genius, who did great things for me, set a very solid foundation. He was the first major producer I ever worked with. Kyle actually introduced me to him before he went to prison. he was going in, and he brought me to Joe Mesius and said, hey, look, this is my guy. I do everything well. I love this kid. He has talent. I'm going in, and I need you to take him under your wing while I'm in. And Joe Mesius did.
Yeah.
He did a great job of that. We produced a whole album. First, it was going to be 3 songs. I hit those 3 songs, and the guy was like, that shit's hard. We're doing a full album. So we did. And Joe Mesius is great. You know, he has he's produced for Tech Nine. He's produced for Ritz. He's produced for Stevie Stone. He's produced for, Mozzie, lots of people. I think most importantly me personally, because I have such a close relationship with him, and different than any other artist he's ever worked with. When that first album was happening, the hardest thing in my life came up, where my dad hit his deathbed, and doctors thought that he would probably die within a few months, 6 months, a year, something like that. He had stage 4 prostate cancer, and it was on the very end of stage 4. He couldn't get out of bed. He couldn't take a piss. He literally could not fucking move. That was the scariest thing, seeing my dad like that. And I was afraid of my dad most of my life. So I was like, holy shit, this strong man is now, the weakest thing I've ever seen. And it caused me to go in heavier on everything I was doing. So I immediately, when I found this out, I called a homie of mine. I was like, I need to get on the river. My boy was like, let's go rafting. I got a couple boys together. We got on the raft, got on the Colorado River, took a fuckload of drugs with us. I think I dropped acid. I did coke that day. I did a shit ton of moonshine. I was smoking an assload of weed, pop shrooms in a matter of a 4 or 5 hour trip. And it was a lot longer trip than that, if you know what I mean. But when I came out on the other side of the river, and you got to understand, the river moves, and you go where it goes. So I think that was the smartest thing I could have done, because I got on that raft and I realized I was fucking powerless. I had no fucking control, and I was lit. I mean, extremely lit. I'm sitting there laying on this raft in an eddy. It's swirling around this eddy like this, and we're just laying down high as balls, and this bald eagle up on top of this tree just let out this massive screech, and I'm looking up at it, and it's looking at me, and I'm like, I think I'm sitting in this thing's fishing hole.
Right.
Sure enough, this thing swoops down and comes probably 3 feet from my face. I felt the wind from its wings, just lands on the other side, and I'm sit up. Everyone in the raft sits up. I got my fucking paddle up, ready to hit this eagle that's gonna do something. Right. and it runs up the bank. It's just up the bank and looks over at us and just screeches really loud. And my homie Chris, who is also a raft guide, was like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And he's like, all right, all forward, which means everybody paddle. So everyone's trying to paddle out of this eddy, and it's swirling, right? And we're just getting moving, and this thing comes back at us, and it swoops back from the other side. It's not swooping from a tree this time, it's swooping from a riverbank. So it's literally 2-3 feet above us, and everyone hits the deck with their paddles up in the air, and they're swinging. This thing goes up, sits right back on that same tree, and we're just out of there.
You gotta get out.
We finally get in this wave train, and it's taking us away from this eagle. And I realized, at that moment, I realized, you know what? I'm gonna get the fuck off this river, because we didn't have cell reception out there or anything. I'm gonna call my wife. I'm gonna call my father. I'm gonna call my mom. I'm gonna tell everybody I fucking love them. I'm going to bat.
Yeah.
And that's when I went real heavy into things. I went and started making weed tinctures for my dad. My mom is a herbalist, so she was giving him everything that we could. He did 1 round of chemo. He quit that, and next thing you know, after he's popping CBD and taking, smoking weed,
which he didn't
drinking weed oil, he didn't do any of that. He was against everything. But when you're on your deathbed, you think maybe I should do something else.
Yeah.
And, next thing you know, next day we saw improvements. He was able to get out of bed. And that's when I was like, this is what I'm doing. All of that shit, I put all that energy into my first album.
Yeah.
I put, the Colorado weed vibes into it, because weed, I believe helped save my life. I think it helped save my dad's life.
100%.
And ever since then, I've been 100% go, no stop. And I took it to another level. So we're gonna get a real album out. I'm gonna show my dad who I am, and we're gonna save his life. And he's still alive to this day. It's like 6 years, the past 6 years, I think, that he's had cancer.
Wow, that's amazing, man.
So that was an inspiration for me, and it was one of the hardest things I ever been through. So looking back on that, I can say I think that would be a big catalyst to the way I move now.
Oh yeah, man. Absolutely. That's something that's real life stuff, man. That is real life stuff that we go through, and we make decisions, and you kind of either snap out of it isn't something the word I would use, but your reality shifts. It's kind of like your reality shifts into a different perspective. You're faced with mortality. You're faced with life. You're faced with everything. Just kind of catches up to you, and you're like, man, I really gotta do something, and you just saw this path, this journey, and you said, you saw it. What you like you said, you jumped on this raft. You were taking all these drugs because this is what you wanted, and you were looking for something, some answers. Working through the drawers up there. You were just separating the drawers and trying to get organized. And you saw that journey, and you moved with it. You just moved forward with it.
Yeah, I think becoming the movement is like the most important thing for an artist.
Right.
Understanding what it is and going towards it, like seeing yourself in the future, seeing yourself as you want to be, and putting on every little piece of that, the hat, the sunglasses, the wire wrap chain. I make these things. That was 250 hours I put into this, because I was on the phone with a jeweler in New York. And he was like, oh, it's going to be $3,000 for this 2-inch pendant. And I was like, dude, I'm good with that. But then he was like fucking me around. I was like, you know what? I'll make my own fucking jewelry. Screw you, bro. Right. So I did. I started putting money into myself, and like really learning how to make my own pendants, my own swag, my own style, and
to build upon the style he already had. It echoes because he's not exclusive with his learning, and it just shows how big of a leader he is, and he can take a horrible situation that a lot of people would crumble from, and not only make it better for him, but make it better for his whole entire team.
There you go. You need that. Some people have that, some people don't. Survivalist mentality, hunter-gatherer mentality. No matter what, we're gonna come back with that, with something. We're gonna come back with win.
Hunter-gatherer. We can thank Chappelle for that one, right? Was that a Chappelle line? Yeah, the bird. I've seen you before.
Man, that's awesome, Parks. Like your manager was saying, it's true. You're a leader. You're a natural leader, and you have that in you. Just like when you were looking for the jewelry, and you said, you know what, I'm gonna make my own. Whenever you don't ask for a yes or a green light, you give yourself those green lights, and you create those paths forward.
Yeah, don't get me wrong with the jewelry thing, man. I go right to the source. So, like, for my Herkimer diamonds that I put in my pieces, I get them from Treasure Mountain, from Herkimer, New York. The owner of the mine, his son, comes to my house. He was a lift mechanic up at Winter Park. He's a great person. He comes, he lays out specimens and AAA Herkimers and AA Herkimers, and says, this is what I set aside for you. And I start picking through them and grabbing what I want, and we start working on the price. The turquoise, same thing. That's a family connection. Those are special people. They give me that. We make deals. I go right to the source. So, like, if I ever do get an iced out piece, it'll be from the source. And so, but for now, it's pretty much I wear mostly my own stuff. And stuff family or friends. So
there's an attention to detail with you, and it shows in just your attire and your aesthetic. It's everything like that all shows. It's all transparent. And that's why I reached out to you, Parks. That's exactly why I reached out to you. Part of the reason I do this show is because I look for people like you, and I found you, and I said, this guy's the real deal. He's an auteur. I can see that he puts out his work honestly, and he's not doing it for anybody else. I don't know if I have just a read on this. I once was told, by a gypsy in New York that I could see through, I could feel people's energies, and I felt like I felt yours, and I said, I got to reach out to this guy, man, and just hear what he has to say, and I think a lot of this stuff is going to resonate with our audience.
Well, I appreciate that. What made you get into doing interviews? What made you get into podcasting? We're way up here in the mountains, bro. I live at 9,000 feet, so.
9,000 feet. Well, boys, I was going to say next time I'm in Colorado, I'll reach out, but 9,000 feet, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet the weed hits different when you're 9,000 feet in the air.
Sure does.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They say that's kind of our third, on a soccer field, they used to say, that's our extra player is your altitude. So anytime anybody come up, they'd be like, yeah, well, we play with an extra player. So they'd start running around, and by like the first half, they were like, fuck. They're like, cool, man, we training this, we're good. And then it's funny because also at the bar, they always tell you when you first come up here, if you're a tourist and you go to the bar, they're going to tell you, hey, man, maybe only have about half the drinks that you usually have. And people are always like, oh, I can drink, I can smoke, blah, blah, blah. Oh, man, they'll be like, you just see tourists all fucked up here after like 3 drinks. It's like 12.
Yeah. That's insane, man. Give me 1 second, man. I apologize. Man, that's wicked sweet, man. Last time I was in Colorado, I went to Moscow, Colorado, to the Great Sand Dunes, and that was pretty wicked cool, man.
Oh, yeah.
That was a beautiful scenery, and just Colorado's amazing, man. The air out there is nice. Everything is it's a good place, man. I would not mind living out there.
Hey, man, you can come up here. This is probably one of the most beautiful places in Colorado.
Guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Okay. Where specifically? I mean, you don't have to release, your street address, but like where it's in Colorado.
Winter Park, Colorado. I don't give a
Nice.
fuck, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I could put my address up. I really don't. I'm one of those people that it's like, dude,
He ain't worried. He don't call the police.
hear me? I'm fucking here, bro. Like,
All right.
good or bad.
Come
good or
say
bad.
what's up.
Yeah. Most of the time, people just want to fucking meet other people. So.
Absolutely, man. Parks, I'll answer your question. You asked me why I do this, how I got into this show, right? I have a lot of conversations that I wish I would have recorded. Sometimes, I would have some engaging conversations with people. I worked at a newspaper stand, and people would just come up to me sometimes and literally just spiel their life stories to me, or just start talking about stuff, and I'd be like, I've never met this guy in my life. He's giving me his whole thing, and then, that stuff would just happen to me. And other times, I'd reach out, I'd talk to somebody, it's just things would happen, conversations would take place. Some of them would lead to some crazy experiences, and it's just like, that stuff was awesome. And they said, you know what, the podcasting was getting more popular, and I said, we gotta document this stuff and just, it's kind of like sharing it, everybody could watch this stuff, not only just me having that conversation. It's that a lot of people are going to get value from this, just like they're going to get value from having heard everything you said.
Are you a full-time podcaster? Is this all you do?
No, man, I got so many things that I do, but this is one of them.
Right. Absolutely.
I think that's
about it.
That's a message. That's a message to the artist. Is like, your art is never one thing. You can be like, I'm a rapper, I'm a violin player. Anyone ever says that, they're wrong, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, they have many things they're doing, whether they consider it work or not, whether they consider it a passion or something they're pursuit, right, or whatever. I have, I'd say 6 things that I would consider jobs. 6 jobs,
Yeah.
And it is constant, man. Like, no matter what, sometimes it's hard to find time to do anything else, like just to relax for 5 minutes.
But that's just, again, like, if you really want it and you really want to take it to that extra level, like, that's what it is and that's what it takes. You know, if you want to have the ability to relax in the future and look back, you know, right now it's time to grind, and sometimes you don't have free time.
No, sir, you said it, man. You said it. You know, a lot of people, even when they have everything handed to them on a silver spoon, it doesn't look as enjoyable when they have it a little more than most people. You know, it's you can't fake it, man. You work hard for your stuff, you hit the books, you take care of it, and then you enjoy the fruits of your labor. You know, create it for yourself, establish some sort of foundation, and make it happen.
And I think one of the things I'd like to add about having like 6 jobs, I would say there's one job I always keep for my bills. Make sure my bills are paid. Make sure my woman's taken care of. Her bills are paid. You know, no big deal, right? I'd say I do that like 4 days a week, right? Okay, then I have another job that I make sure that all of that money from that job goes into my music. Anything I do from that, any money I pull from that, I invest. I invest into myself as a business. Yeah. You know, and the other jobs as well generally do that too. And then I also have like entrepreneur type jobs, like you know, like have your hands in as many pots as you can because one of them's going to boil. Yeah. So I have, you know, when one of these pots boils, then I take that and I'll let it run, and I take that and dump that back into music, because I think that that's the most important thing. You just keep giving to music, and eventually it'll give back. But I hate it. Like, that's a pet peeve. I hate it when people are like, oh, you know, I want to make a song with you. I want to do music with you, but, you know, I want everything free. I don't want to have to pay for nothing. I don't want to buy the beat from a producer. I don't want to, you know, like, they just want you to do everything. And you're like, no one should be that fucking entitled.
Right.
Like,
right.
Like, no, like if you could prove that I need to pay for everything, then do it. But I bet you're going to have a fucking hard time doing that.
That's a very unrealistic mindset a lot of people have, and they have nothing to show for it, right? Nothing. I mean,
the most talented artists are generally the ones that are willing to give everything that they have for art, whether you're a part of it or not. And then also the ones that don't even think that their craft is very good. So every time, you know, you get a song back, you hear it, and you're like, man, I could have done that better. Even if you like it, 1 week later, you probably don't. Like, most of the time I'm putting a song out, by the time that song comes out, I'm over it. I'm already 4 songs
on to the next. You know, it's already on to the next, you know.
You're a capitalist, man. You know, you're a hustler, so I can see that. Once the track's done, you're already on to the next thing, and it's like how it can never get old for you, because you have so many pots cooking. There's always things in motion, and those things in motion keep you busy, constantly inspired, constantly taking things in, and that's what keeps the ship moving. That's what keeps the ball rolling, you know. Man, Parks, you put a lot of great trophies out in this podcast. I really appreciate you for just saying everything you've been talking about, man. The audience is gonna love this, everything, man. Both you guys are the real deal, and anybody who wants to be an artist is really gonna take inspiration from this, because, you know, a lot of people are 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They don't know what to do, and this tells you, you know, like you said, you're not one of these guys who's like, you know, being wishy-washy about it. You got your stuff in line, you know what you need, and you're looking at it from a more realistic perspective versus, you know, a lot of people with the social media, it's a little bit fabricated on the front end, but there's nothing happening on the other side.
Right.
Man, there are so many people with like 65,000 followers, and then you go to their pictures and they're like 60 likes on the picture and like 2 comments, and you're like, there's fucking something wrong here.
Exactly, you know, and like, the ability to buy likes and views and other metrics, you know, has really skewed people's mindsets, you know, because not a lot of people know that.
And it's honestly, that is super appealing to an artist. So there's lots of Spotify scams out there for playlisting and things like that.
Instagram,
YouTube views, whatever you want to do, you can buy it all. And I can tell you right now that, like, you can think that's going to get ahead, but most of the time you'll be excited about, like, oh, I all the views are going up, even though they're fake. And then you realize that you fucked up your algorithms. Like, so all the fake followers you bought, well, now Instagram has an algorithm that says, I'm going to send out this song or your post or whatever, right, to 20% of your followers and see how many like it, how much percentage of 20% like it. And then that's how it decides how many more people of your followers it's going to show the post to. So when you're like, oh, well, you have all these fake followers, it sends that 20% to fake followers. So say that you only get, 5% of 20% of your followers like that. Well, Instagram says that's not enough engagement. No one likes this post. We're not going to show anybody else.
Right.
So then it's really, really hard for you from then on to get likes on your posts or your videos or music or anything. Even on Spotify, it's the same. Because basically now it's projecting to, 90% fake people and 10% real people.
Yeah.
So that 20% is, those real people are now 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you want to be swimming where the fish are, not where all the dead fish are. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I've seen that happen in real life. I did a music video once for an artist I'd never heard of, and everything seemed legitimate. And when the video came out, the video had like 5 million views the next day. I was like, whoa, I've never heard of this dude, and there's a whole operation just happening right here, like a bunch of fake likes and there's a bunch of views, but then the comments were a little weird, and then the guy just disappeared one day. I tried to watch the video again, the video was gone. I think it was like reposted from another channel, and then it had like 2,000 views or something later down the line. But this guy had a kid, and it was just a little bit weird, and it was just, it's unsustainable, but it's hard and it's real. I always say, I try to look at it in somebody's shoes, and I see what they're trying to do, but it's a hard road to take. It's a hard road to take.
Yeah, I mean, like, hard road. Yeah, like, I like to tell myself, and I like to tell Parks, sometimes the only way out is through. Like, sometimes you can't skirt the edges. Sometimes you just gotta go the hard way.
Haste is waste.
And I'd say, like, the hard way is generally the better way. And I say that, with a little bit of caution, because the hard way will change you. But if you're willing to grow, if you're not willing to grow, don't do it. But if you're willing to grow and you kind of enjoy a challenge, then the hard way is what makes you a phenomenal artist. It doesn't make you a good artist. It doesn't make you a great artist. It makes you a phenomenal artist. It makes you a phenomenal person, a phenomenal businessman. And ultimately, it makes you somewhat of a boss. It makes you decide, I'm gonna fucking own this. I'm gonna control this, and I'm gonna tell people what I want. And sometimes that's the hardest thing, to tell people what you want, because I find that most artists don't know what the fuck they want. They're like, I want fame. You're like, what? You're like, that is the most broad thing that you could ever say. There's no details involved in that. If you say that you want a caddy, you're going to get a caddy. You say it enough times, you think about a Cadillac enough times, you're going to get a Cadillac. But here's the deal. What Cadillac did you get? Did you get a busted-ass, rusty, $2,000 piece of shit Cadillac with bent Dayton's on it? Or did you get that fucking, when you put details into it, you're like, you know what? I want a Cadillac. I want a 2021 Cadillac with the peanut butter leather. I want the fucking titanium carbon, dash. I want fresh decals on the outside of my own fucking business.
Absolutely.
I want the turbo, whatever. You know, you put all of it in. You put every little detail, and you hold yourself to those fucking details, and that's when you get exactly what you want.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of times I fucking put it out there like, oh, I'm just going to make a fucking hot song and put the song out. And I'm like, I didn't put any details into where that was going to go, how I was going to release it. I just put it out there. Who was going to share it? I didn't reach out to the homies. I didn't reach out to the producers. I didn't do nothing. You know, you're just so excited you release it and you forget about all the details. Those guys that are making, you know, hit songs, you couldn't imagine how many people they have to talk to before they release that song.
Absolutely.
How many people are aware of it? How many people are, you know, gonna get together and push it at that time? It's just like you and I saying, hey, 5:30 on July 20th. We both were waiting for that to happen 5 minutes early, guaranteed. I was here 15 minutes early, you know? So we had to communicate, and there's just very little communication and no details, and that's when it becomes something you're like, oh, I mean, I have a song, but I don't have a hit song, and I don't have a song that's being streamed in, you know, 80 countries or something, or 78 countries or whatever, you know, like. And you'll see those metrics go up and those analytics go up as you put more details into it. You'll be like, holy shit, 100 people in Hungary just streamed my song.
And those are the details that matter, you know, because that's your reach.
Absolutely. That's the difference between, just like what you were saying, Parks, between being a regular artist and a phenomenal artist. That attention to detail on how you're going to maneuver that ship to land where it's supposed to land versus landing a little bit crooked and everybody's like, I don't even know if that's going to stay, you know. You want someone who knows how to control this and fly the plane and just guide it where it needs to go and land it how it needs to be landed, you know.
And don't get me wrong, I always say this, one of my sayings that I tell people is there's always a miracle out there. There is that motherfucker that just throws a song out there and it blows the fuck up and you get massive. If you think that you're that 0.00001% of society or of the music industry, cool. I don't get fucking miracles. I have to work for everything I got. I already expired every miracle I fucking had. And when I realize that, when I don't expect miracles, when I, you know, like now I know. Well, we got a long, hard road. Let's get it. You know, like, you know,
and that's literally exactly the approach we take. I'm the same way, and we're not looking for any handouts or really any miracles. We're looking for the hard work.
I don't have false expectations anymore. I don't believe that you just put something out there and it goes to the fucking moon. I believe that you build the fucking rocket ship that goes to the moon and it takes 20 years, like Noah's Ark status. You're just sitting there fucking putting it together, then finally you turn the key and the motherfucker don't turn on and you have to do some more work.
And all along everyone around you saying, why are you building this boat?
Yeah, why are you building that? Why are you doing that? And then they get it. And they finally get it. And they're like, oh shit, man, I'm so proud of you walking to the grocery store that day and 15, you can't get out of the grocery store for an hour. All you went in for was for bagged salad. And you're like just being told, I'm so proud of you, man, all this. And that's when it really starts to hit you that, holy shit, I'm living my fucking vision. It normally doesn't hit till shit like that happens.
Parks, how can our audience find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram, Parks Thomson Music. You can find me on Facebook, Parks Thomson or Parks Thomson Music. YouTube, Parks Thomson, ParksThomson. Pretty much anywhere. I got banned from TikTok, so you're not going to find me on TikTok. Not for a long time. They said I had a life ban.
Why'd you get banned from TikTok, man? Why are they banning you?
Well, let's start with Facebook. I started with Facebook because, you know, I was like everybody else. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to get views? One day I woke up, I think it was like 8 a.m., and I didn't even take a shower. I threw on some jeans. I threw on a shirt that was fully printed, that with weed plants that said "blunt slut" on it. And I went to my dad's house at like 8 a.m. and I was like, "Dad, you gotta film me." And he's like, "I'm fucking cooking breakfast, bro." I'm like, "Right now." He turns the stove off, grabs my phone. I drive him out to my property, and we go into the greenhouse, and I'm sitting here between all these weed plants, and I'm like, hey, Dad, film this shit. It's about to be lit. I put a little Bluetooth speaker up, and I just rap my own song, Rocky Mountain High. And it was one of the first singles I did with Joe Mezius the Genius. And so I'm rapping about weed. I'm up in the Rocky Mountains with weed all around me, and I just threw it up on Facebook. Next day I woke up, it had like 30,000 views. I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, there's something here. There's something here. So I got a team together. We started sharing that video around to weed groups and stuff, and it blew up. It was like 130,000 views on it. And to me, that was a shit ton. I had only gotten like, 100, 200 views before, So I was like, holy shit, man, we're getting views.
Yeah.
And it was organic. I had no money involved. And I thought, well, shit, if we're getting 130,000 organic views, why don't we pay Facebook to run an ad? What I didn't know is that it was promoting drug usage to Facebook. So when I went to go pay for an ad on that video, Facebook shut down my ad account. Never allowed me to do an ad again. I can't pay for ads. I'm fully organic now. I cannot pay for ads on Instagram because I was, and then Facebook bought Instagram like weeks later, and I was like, fuck, now I can't even pay for an ad on Instagram, and all these artists are just paying for sponsored ads, and they're coming through my feed, and I'm so fucking jealous. And I'm like, these assholes can just pay their fucking way, and I have to like hashtag things, and I have to reach out to people in DMs, and reach out in person, and these dudes don't have to do that.
But it made it stronger.
Again, I don't get fucking miracles. I have to work for it. So I was like, well, shit, all right. Well, I did it organic. I'm going to do it again. So I did it again. I made another little video. I was like whipping up coconut oil and weed. I like reach into the freezer. I grab out like a quarter pound or a half pound of weed, and I just crush it into dust in front of the camera. Dump it into a fucking crock pot full of oil, like the old hippie method. I start spinning it with a spoon. My music's playing in the background, and I'm like, I'm making that sauce, and I'm like rapping about it. And sure enough, it blew up again. It was like 60,000 views overnight or something. And I was like, all right, we're on to something. And again, Facebook was like, yeah, we are now starting to frown upon this behavior. So it started, taking me away from those algorithms. So anyways, I was like, well, fuck this. I keep hearing about TikTok. Everyone's telling me about TikTok. I thought it was like a little girl and boy dance dance app, and I'm not into that. So I got on it and I made a video. And that video was just me sitting there having a cup of coffee, and this fucking massive bull elk walks out of the woods like 10 feet from me. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like doing my coffee and the elk, and I'm like, yeah, dude, this is sick, And I threw it up on TikTok, and it got like 2,000 views right off the bat, which was significant for me. It didn't blow up, but it blew up enough. Like a lot of people get on TikTok and they get 60 views on their first video. Or 100, and I was like, shit, man, I'm like good at this, So I started putting another video out. It was like 3,000 views the next time. Then I'm like, well, fuck yeah, now we're gonna promote my music. Well, I had this song called Zombie Baked, and we were fucking zombified during that whole music video. So there's this part in the music video where I'm sitting on the couch, and I have a bong in my lap. It's a brand new bong, clear tube, right? Well, you can only see the top half of the bong in the TikTok video. And I hit it, and it pulls the smoke up, and I clear it, and when I look up and breathe out, the smoke hits the camera, and it clears, and I'm a fucking zombie. Like, face is just fucking bloody, and I'm like zombie baked, right? Like, so I was getting across this image. Well, I didn't realize that you couldn't have a glass piece in a TikTok video. I hadn't done my research. TikTok reached out to me and said, you're promoting drug usage and you are fucking done. No second chances. you're out for life.
And we're talking years, and this happened to me too, because we went to mine, and just tried to use mine, and they're so finicky about it, and it's like, sure, it's made us venture into other things, but I mean, man, for life?
Yeah, for weed, and it's legal in Colorado, so I just didn't understand it. My brain didn't really wrap around that until, I think a couple months after that, I was like, okay, I understand why they don't want that. And so basically, I probably will get another TikTok account, but I have to get a new phone number, a third phone, and I basically have to have it just for that social media. So when I do that, you can expect to see me again on TikTok, and I will not put a glass fucking bong in a video. I promise.
That's just weird, though. They should have like a more organized way of dealing with that. Even on the streets, you get a bell clerk, you're done, your probations, anything like that. But there's nothing. They just ban you, and that's it. You're just gone. Like that's work wise, and just it doesn't make sense. It's kind of chains you up a little bit.
It did. I was really pretty pissed off about it. But I understand they're a no tolerance app. And it's probably better that they are, because there are children on there, and that's not my intention to be some sort of negative influence on children. To what I see I'm doing is a positive influence. So whether people think that or not, I don't really care. I know what I'm doing, and I'm happy to do it, and I'm going to continue to do it that way. I will not promote things the same on social media, but I still believe heavily in weed as a medicine, even though I'm really not smoking right now. I haven't smoked in I guess 3 weeks, but then before that it was 3.5 years I didn't smoke. I didn't touch weed or alcohol or anything. And I went down on my longboard super fucking hard at 40 miles an hour. I grew up longboarding, and I got stitches in this elbow and massive fucking burn up this elbow all down my back at 40. Jeremiah Rios was out here for the first time in my car. World-renowned engineer, never hung out with someone like me probably, and I'm like, hey bro, this is way too nice of a day. I pull the car over at the top of this hill. It's looking out at these mountains. It's golden hour. And I'm like, I think I got a longboard in the back. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, you're driving. He's like, okay. He didn't even know there was a longboard in the back of what I was doing. And I go to the back of the car. I'm like, dude, yeah, you're driving. Open it up, grab the board. And I didn't have my longboard in there. My homies was in there. It was a short board. So still as fast as a longboard, but it's the wheelbase is only a foot instead of 5 feet or 4 feet or 3 feet, where you can level out speed wobbles and shit at a certain. I wasn't thinking. I was like, bro, I'm dropping this hill no matter what. Fuck it. I don't even need my board. I'm experienced enough. I've been doing this shit since I was 10. I start going there, and I'm filming myself. I'm fuck yeah, this is sick. And I put my phone in my pocket, because I'm getting going 20 now. And I'm start taking long turns across the road. I'm I'm going to slow myself down with some turns. Well, the pitch is coming. It's starting to get steeper. And it picks up to 25, 30. And I'm like, dude, this board ain't going to handle this. You can't walk off a board. You can't run off a board at 30 mile an hour. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try to fucking level this thing out. So I started putting some pressure on the front of the longboard. That's how you level out speed wobbles on a real longboard with a 3-foot wheelbase. Because there's enough, there's enough in the back to hold it down, right? Well, on a short board that's barely even 20 inches, 18 inches, but it's moving at 35 mile an hour, when you try to put the weight on the front of it like that, it doesn't compute. It just gets more wobbly. So that fucker just got violent, and I just smacked the ground at 40 miles an hour. Slid probably 55 feet. And I just got up, and my shit was strewn, dude. I mean, my glasses were somewhere on the road. My flip-flops came off. They were all...
Oh, you didn't even mention you were doing this in flip-flops.
It ripped my shirt off. It like literally ripped my shirt off, and the board's over here. I'm like, oh, dude, I get up and I realize at that point, well, Jeremiah's in my car. I'm like, shit, man. I'm like, fuck, this dude like produces or engineers for like Lil Wayne and shit, and he's watching this. So I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna act like I'm with my homies. And I like just stand up, get my shit. I'm like, yeah, that shit just happens. It's all good. He's like, dude, are you okay? I'm like, oh, it's fine. It's part of the sport, bro. It's good. I'm like,
you went to the doctor, right?
And I'm like, grab my shit, and I'm just bleeding profusely. I grab my shirt and tie my arm off because of how much blood is coming out of it, because it was like a 2 centimeter wide cut.
Shit.
And I'm like, and I like get in the car, and I'm like, he's like, oh, are you good? And I'm like, look like I've been shot at this point because there was so much blood all over the place, all over the board, all over everything. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm good, but I'm going to need like a sandwich right now. So we drive to Rudy's, we grab a sandwich. I get my shock, like I was going into shock. So I get like my blood sugar right. And I'm like, I'm going to drop you off at home and you can work on the studio, bro. And I'm going to go to the hospital. And he's like, you sure? And I'm like, oh yeah, dude, it's cool. I've been to the hospital plenty of times. Like, don't worry about it. So I drop him off with a sandwich at my house for the first time. And I just fucking take off to the hospital. And that night, my story was lit as fuck on Instagram. Yes. I'm like filming the dude stitching me up and like my arm hanging out, the bone exposed. And I'm just like cheery as like, you know, cheery as like, just happy as hell, you know. So
the fact that you walked that off.
And I was like, man, I probably just scared that dude off. He's never gonna like come back. And sure enough, like, you know, like I'm dropping him off at the airport, and I'm like, you coming back? He's like, actually, dude, yeah, I'm gonna come back. He's like, you know, I had a great fucking time. So yeah, hey, shout out to Jeremiah for putting up with that shit. But it was a lot of, you know.
Hey, that's just another day in the life with Parks.
Yeah.
Pretty much, you know, when I'm on tour and I'm on a tour bus, we come up to a big hill or a pass, I'm probably going to tell him to stop and let me longboard it. So.
He calls it adrenaline therapy, and like, I mean, it's absolutely true. You know, if he's having writer's block or if he's just stressed out or whatever, he's going to go jump off something or risk his life, and he'll be fine.
Yep.
You got to live for those thrills, man. You can't hold that back. Parks, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. All right, man, we got your social media links. We know how to find you. Is there anything else we should leave at?
You know, don't give up on what you love. Pursue it with everything, and network. Network like a motherfucker, because your network is your spider web, and if you have more of a network, you can catch more food. So I appreciate you, brother. I hope you come out to Colorado and visit me.
Please do.
I promise I won't slide down a hill at 40 miles an hour on my face. But
I'll reach out when I'm out there, brother, for sure.
All right, hell yeah.
All right, you guys.
Much love.